I'm sorry, we discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. He came out and he didn't know what to do.
Lexi, I told you about this.
But
I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
scared.
I've never seen anything like that, and I pray to God I never have to see it again.
Millions of people have seen this body cam already. But when this girl goes on trial for the murder of her newborn, the 12 jurors who will decide her fate will not. The state Supreme Court of New Mexico just tossed what might be the most critical pieces of evidence in the state's case against Alexee Trevizo.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. That sentence, spoken by a physician to a 19-year-old patient, is now legally inadmissible in a court of law. Not because it isn't true, but because of how it was weaponized. The New Mexico Supreme Court just suppressed the central evidence in a first-degree murder prosecution. And they didn't just suppress a statement, they suppressed an entire operational design. Imagine a hospital room as a locked box. What happens inside is supposed to be a sanctuary. In this ruling, the highest court in the state looked at what happened in that room and concluded it was not medicine. It was a trap. The doctor had set her up with the police. Their words, not mine. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Trial Theory, Unsealed. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The timeline reads like a procedural manual for how to dismantle a prosecution. January 27, 2023. Alexee Trevizo, 19 years old, arrives at a rural New Mexico hospital with 10 out of 10 back pain. She receives morphine, a muscle relaxer, and acetaminophen. A pregnancy test comes back positive, but nobody tells her. For nearly an hour, she receives IV narcotics while the positive result sits in her chart uncommunicated. She then goes to the bathroom, delivers a full-term baby boy, and returns to her bed. The state calls this murder. The defense calls this a systems failure. The court has now ruled that what happened next was not an investigation. It was an ambush.
The doctor had set her up with the police. Their words, not mine, where they ambushed her.
Alexee's lawyer just joined us to talk about why this means everything to the defense of a girl who is charged in a horrific crime, charged with first-degree murder. A massive ruling in this case that goes back to 2023. And Alexee Trevizo, her lawyer tells us, is ecstatic about the decision. It just came down from the New Mexico Supreme Court yesterday. Now, Alexee is still charged with the first-degree murder for what reportedly happened at a hospital in the middle of the night in January of that year. But if and when she goes on trial, prosecutors will not be able to use the statements that she made when she
Here
was
is the structural collapse the Supreme Court identified. Once the doctor called law enforcement to report a deceased infant, the mandatory reporting duty was satisfied. That transaction was complete. But the state argued the presence of a third party, the mother in the room, waived confidentiality entirely. They wanted a per se rule, a blanket waiver. The court rejected that. Quote, "We reject that argument as inconsistent with case law and the policy interests underlying the physician-patient privilege." Translation: bringing a cop into a treatment room does not transform your doctor into a detective. The white coat does not double as a badge.
The state then appeals, saying that Alexee did not have physician-patient privilege because doctors are required to call law enforcement in cases like that. And the privilege was waived also because Alexee's mom was in the room with her. It's important to note that Alexee was legally an adult at 19 years old. In November of last year, the New Mexico Supreme Court then takes up this case and they hear arguments. And this week, they ruled, siding with the district court ruling, that the statements that Alexee made to police and the statements that she made to doctors that night cannot be used in her case. And that also, according to her attorney, goes for video on body cam and video that was shot by the hospital that evening. Now, in their ruling, the Supreme Court noted that once doctors notified deputies that a dead baby was found in the trash can, their reporting duty was done. And the doctor-patient privilege still existed at that point. So this next line that is in the Supreme Court ruling, I'll admit to you, it's a little legalese here, but it's important. So let's just go through it, and then we're going to talk to Alexee's attorney here. Quote, "The state's argument urges us to adopt a per se rule that whenever a third person is present who is not necessary for care or treatment while a patient communicates with their doctor, a waiver of confidentiality takes place, regardless of who the person is or of the
This
circumstance.
brings us to the controlled demolition. The body camera footage millions have watched, the tearful fragmented statements, the officer's warning that she could go to jail right now.
So as of right now, like I'm going to say this, we're going to have the detectives come over here and they're going to talk to you, okay? We have to gather some more information about what's going on. They'll get your statement. They're going to get the doctor's statements. They're going to get everybody's statements, okay? So I don't know everything yet, okay? So I'm not going to tell you, I can't tell you nothing honestly, okay? All I can
But
say
she's
is,
not gonna go to jail.
right now,
She don't know?
right now she's being detained. So she's not going to leave from here at all, period, okay? So one of us will
Is
be
it in your custody? Like,
yeah, she's detained. Yeah, she's not under arrest, but she is
Okay.
detained. Okay, she's not free to leave. So while this whole thing is coming up, you're not free to leave. Okay, one of us will be in here the whole time with you, because you're not going to try to leave or nothing like that.
she won't.
Like I said, the detectives will be here. They're going to talk to you. I mean, your care is of the utmost right now. Okay, they're going to do what they need to do to take care of you to make sure you get stable. They get you transferred out or whatever. Like I said, the detectives are already been notified. They're already on the way, so they're going to come talk to you. All right. So don't leave. Don't try to do nothing. One of us is always going to be in here in this room with you. Okay, unless we have to step out for doctor's orders, something like that, because if they need to examine you or do something with you. But other than that, like I said, you are detained. You are not free to leave at this point. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All of it is out. The Supreme Court didn't exclude a single piece of evidence. They excluded the prosecution's narrative architecture. The district judge, a former nurse, initially found the doctor's confrontation was highly confrontational and designed to elicit a
Supreme
response.
Court ruled that the video, the statements you see Trevizo make to doctors and nurses, and what she said in front of police, all of those things that night are now out. Trevizo is charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. There was an abuse charge initially she faced, but that was dropped. A state autopsy, again, finding the baby died of what's called entrapment. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. A district court judge in August of 2024 ruled that police should not have been brought into the room, and those statements that Alexee made that were caught on police body cam, they violated physician-patient confidentiality. And they also noted that Trevizo made statements without being read her Miranda rights. In the district ruling, quote, the district court explained that the statement made by defendant's own doctor that a dead baby was discovered in the bathroom was made in a highly confrontational manner and by any reasonable interpretation is shocking, confrontational, and designed to elicit a response.
The Supreme
Now
Court
again,
agreed. What remains now is a homicide charge built on an autopsy finding of entrapment, but without the emotional engine that drove the public
seen by
indictment.
millions of people at this point, like that cannot be presented as evidence at trial. Like this ruling, though, does that where does this extend? Because you do have the doctor who was in the room that night. You have those police officers. You know, they cannot. You know, how does this extend to potentially them going on the stand and telling a jury what your client said that night? Like, what does this ruling extend to beyond just that body cam video?
It's out. They can't use it.
So no statement about what she made that night to any of the doctors, that cannot be used.
And those videotapes cannot be used. They're all out because they were taken by the hospital. And at the time that set up to try
The
to
prosecution must now prove a baby was born alive and died through criminal neglect without showing the jury the very moment the accusation was first delivered as a weapon.
Because this is central to what just went down with the Supreme Court.
I'm sorry, we discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I came out and I didn't know what to do. Lexi, I told you about this.
But it
I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
it was not crying or nothing.
What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here. Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority, She just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
Yeah.
I've spoken to the obstetrician at Loveless. They want her out there as soon as possible.
Okay.
I obviously need your permission to transfer her from medicals to. She needs to
She's
be
19.
Oh, you're right.
But she is a student too.
She's
No,
still
no,
19
you're
years
right.
old.
You're right. She needs to. I'm sorry, I forgot she's 19.
Keep out of me.
But you need to make sure that you're safe. I need to send you to Loveless to labor and delivery. Will you please agree to that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. I'm gonna work on that. In terms, I'm sorry about this, but in terms of delivering a baby and it looked like you tried to hide it, we do have to have the police involved.
And nothing was crying. It came out with nothing.
I know. But the baby's gonna have to be taken for autopsy and there'll be an investigator and everything. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But we need to do this correctly. And I want to be transparent with you about what our steps are going to be. Okay. Officer, do you guys need to talk to her before we get her transferred?
How long is it going to be before you have to transfer
I
out?
don't know. Are we working on,
Okay.
Maria,
So-
do you think 20, 30 minutes?
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
Okay.
I got detectives on the way, so
Okay.
they're going to be talking to her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you guys have, I'm the charge nurse here, do you guys have any questions for me?
Like, how big is the baby?
It's full term.
What? 9 months? Nothing was crying. Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls that what they do to their babies and what they go to jail? Nothing was crying.
They never told her she was pregnant. They never told her she was pregnant. They never told her she was pregnant. This is the moral refrain buried in the footnotes of the opinion.
Situation, but the hospital did nothing. In fact, the opinion reflects that for a lengthy period of time, almost up to an hour, they didn't bother to tell her that she was pregnant. They never told her she was pregnant until after she had delivered the baby in the bathroom. And most important, they certainly didn't look, because she gave them information that any good doctor or nurses would know, wait a second, we may have a problem here. If she's still menstruating every month and she's pregnant almost at full term, we've got a major issue with this baby that they needed to immediately take care of and get emergency care for. They didn't do any of
The
that.
hospital administered morphine to a patient they knew was carrying a full-term infant. They didn't stop the IV. They didn't call an obstetrician. They didn't speak the words. Then, after the crisis, they acted as
End
agents
quote.
of the state.
Join us now is Gary Mitchell, attorney for Alexee Trevizo. Thanks for taking the time to be with us here. What does this ruling mean for your case?
Well, it means almost everything, actually, because most important, the right to privacy that she has, which is protected under New Mexico's Constitution, has been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court in a very clear and distinct way. She has a doctor-patient privilege, a hospital patient privilege, and therefore all the information that came from the hospital is inadmissible in court. But more important for this case, which a lot of people have not noticed, and I appreciate you asking about, is the Supreme Court taking on the absolute, frankly, malpractice of the hospital, the failure of doctors and nurses to render the care that she went to the hospital for, and the failure to tell her that she was pregnant, the failure to tell her that she might be having a baby, the failure to check, all of that occurred, and for which they, frankly, have attempted to cover up. So it's a huge change in the case. The Supreme Court's opinion is very clear, and there shouldn't be any question about it.
You know, a lot of people have seen the body cam video at this point of statements that your client made that night. What is it like when someone is watching that video? Maybe they're seeing it now for the first time. Why is what we're watching there a violation of her rights?
Because when you go see a doctor or you go to a hospital, your medical conditions are very private and always have been. We've accepted that since common law. Before we even had statutes and rules and regulations regarding it, we've accepted that knowledge. very similar to the privilege between lawyers and clients and priests and their penitents. And so that's the major issue. But in this instance, they go so far.
Here is the ticking clock question. No one is asking if a hospital can sedate you, withhold critical medical information, and then stage an interrogation room before you've been read your rights. Who is actually on trial?
It was a static. She was very ecstatic about it. But on the other hand, I've made her very realistic about this, that this doesn't end the case, that I'm sure the prosecutor is going to continue, and that we have a trial, and all sorts of things can happen between now and then. The law is very subjective at times and not very objective. Hopefully science will be very objective, and I think our science in this case is clear that she really didn't do anything wrong, and there's nothing she could have done, even if she'd have been screaming for help from the first moment the baby passed through the birth canal. But in any event, that's the big thing, and she's realistic about that. And I've made her very realistic about it through my conversations with her, of course. So we'll deal with that as we go by. She's still very apprehensive about it, but the most important thing was when she read the decision and she realized what we'd been saying all along, the Supreme Court found, and really
the patient or the principle of medical sanctuary itself. The attorney for Trevizo, Gary Mitchell, indicated they expect trial in 2027. The civil suit for wrongful death against the hospital is stayed. The criminal case now moves forward stripped of its most incendiary material. And the defense position is not merely procedural. They intend to present expert testimony that the infant was not born alive. The state says entrapment. The defense says stillbirth.
Because she'd been having, as teenage girls typically do, I'm not pregnant because I'm having my period every month. It was classic. She thought she was injured from working out, had tremendous low back pain, goes there, tries to seek treatment. They run a pregnancy test. They don't bother to tell her that she's pregnant. They could have told her she's pregnant. That would have changed everything. They could have said, listen, we need to check. They didn't do anything in that regard. And they didn't do it for a lengthy period of time. In a hospital, an hour is a lengthy period of time without rendering certain treatment or even checking. A simple examination they would have known she was effacing at the time, and she was birth was imminent. But they didn't do any of that. So that's where we're going to head. And our position has always been, this is a total shock to this.
The gap between those two positions is where the entire case now hangs.
She had a baby, and the baby was found, the baby was dead, and they're going to proceed and try to show that the baby was born alive, therefore she was negligent, and that's child abuse, and she's guilty of first-degree murder. That's going to be their argument. We disagree with that. We know our experts are going to say far differently, and so that's where we're going to end up in this case, I think.
We've posted the New Mexico Supreme Court opinion in the description, not a summary. The full text. Read pages 14 through 19. Then come back and answer this single question: at precisely what timestamp does a physician's duty to care convert into an obligation to collect evidence for the state? Because this ruling says that line exists, and once crossed, everything you think you know about what happened in that room becomes legally irrelevant.
My greatest problem in this case is not from what's going to be presented in the courtroom. My greatest problem in this case is trying to pick a jury that hasn't been so influenced by people that didn't know what they were talking about, or people that didn't have all the facts and all the gossip, rumor, hearsay, speculation, guess, and conjecture based on social media. I mean, that is amazingly difficult to get around and amazingly difficult to try to deal with in defending her. And that's the huge risk in this case, is that we convict somebody not based upon facts and the law, but based upon gossip and rumor and hearsay.
Because I do wonder with that, I mean, I've seen the body cam
Share
video.
this with someone who's seen the body cam footage but hasn't read the ruling. Subscribe to Trial Theory, Unsealed, and turn on notifications. We track the evidence, not the outrage.